In this video, I'll show you how I used a regular tie to make the clip-on tie shown here. Before I get started, I strongly advise you to use a practice tie your first couple of times trying this. Here's the practice tie I used. The reason for this is because this method requires cutting holes into the tie. It's very easy to mess up, so you should first try it on a tie you don't really care about. Here's the clip tie hardware that I used. I ordered this online and got a bunch of clips and grommets in a bag so I can make more than one tie if I wanted to. For the purpose of this video, the part of the hardware that has the clip or hook is referred to as a back, and the other side that doesn't have a movable part is the front. You will need a tie, something to mark where the hole should be cut, scissors, the clip tie hardware, and measuring tape. First, I'll show you the basic tying method for the tie so you can have a preview of everything that comes before cutting the holes. Make sure the back of the clip tie hardware is facing you. Take the wider end of the tie, place it over the right wing of the hardware, then loop it under the right wing to the front of the hardware and under the left wing. While doing this, you'll want to keep the skinny part of the tie in place on the front of the tie using your fingers. Another reason for keeping your fingers in this position is to keep a gap where the wider part of the tie will go through. After bringing the wider part of the tie under the left wing, put it over the top of the left wing into the gap you've created with your fingers between the wider part of the tie and the skinnier part. Pull the wider part through this gap as far as it'll go and tighten as needed. These are the basic steps of tying the tie around the hardware. Obviously, this is not very neat and it's quite loose, but this is just the first go at it. This will also give you a better idea of how far up the wider part of the tie you should start, as well as where you'll want to cut the holes for your tie. Now here's how I did it for this tie. I measured the tie for how long I wanted it. I wanted 19 to 20 inches, and I knew that around 4 inches of the tie would be going in and around the hardware. I marked where the first hole needs to be cut so the plastic rod has a place to go through so the tie fabric is secured in place. I cut the first hole, be careful not to cut yourself. I then placed the rod through the hole. The wide part goes under the right wing and across the front. I'm maintaining the position of the skinny part of the tie while also creating a gap using my fingers. The wider part of the tie then comes under the left wing and then goes back over the top of the left wing into the gap. I tightened the ties to the point I wanted, and this took several minutes. I then marked off where I needed the hole for the left side. I then cut the second hole, so that at this point you should have 2 holes so that when you retie it, these holes should serve as a guide. I then retied the tie for a final time, with the plastic rod going through both of the holes I cut. Once I had everything tightened, I put the grommet on to secure everything in place. Depending on the fabric of the tie, the area around the holes might fray. If this bothers or concerns you, you can always hot glue around the grommet. Obviously, be careful not to burn yourself. If your hardware doesn't come with a rod and grommet, instead of cutting holes to secure everything in place, tie the tie and then sew the left and right sides together. Now the clip tie portion of my tie is done, but the skinny portion was too long, so I cut the skinny portion to just around the length of the wider portion. Do not cut too much. Some of this fabric will be gone in sewing and cutting mishaps that typically occur along the way. I salvaged the black backing from the original end of the skinny portion and sewed it back onto this new end. After that, I sewed the back closed, and there you have it, a clip tie made from a regular tie. Some people may be watching this and wondering why I wouldn't just buy ready-made clip ties. The design and fabric options available for adult clip-on ties are limited, so this is a good way to get around that. Also, if a loved one has a tie that they like but aren't able to wear anymore because of fine motor needs, this can be a good way to still wear those ties without dealing with the difficulty of tying a tie. My final pieces of advice are to have several practice ties on hand before trying it with a tie you actually care about. Also, expect it to take a while before you understand how to wrap it. It took me 15 to 20 practice wraps before figuring it out. Finally, some fabric is more ideal for this than others. And that's it. I hope this video was helpful.